Hello, welcome to the DRH Beginner Rhino tutorial. This is a video for complete beginners in the software, and we're going to be learning how to navigate the software interface, how to make 2D shapes, how to make 3D shapes, and also how to move and manipulate those shapes in different ways. So the first thing you'll notice when you open up the software is that there are 4 different windows, and these windows are called viewports. Viewports give us 4 different angles that we can look at our model from. So for example, this box is our model, and when we make changes to this box in one view, it will change in all of the other views. So we can see what's going on from the top view, the front view, and the right view all at once. But to start with, let's focus on the perspective view. So if you double click where it says perspective, it'll enlarge that view. To move around our view, you hold down the Shift button on your keyboard and also hold and drag the right mouse button. To rotate your view, hold down the right mouse button and drag. And then to zoom in and out, use the scroll wheel on your mouse. This grid that we're looking at is called the C-plane. And the C-plane essentially represents the center of our project. So whatever we make, we use the C-plane as a point of reference. So we can see that the box that we made is sitting on top of the C-plane. How I made this box is by typing in the box command. So Rhino is what's called a command line software. And what that means is you can type in certain commands to perform certain actions within the software. So if you look up at the top of the screen where it says command and type in box, hit enter, you can actually create boxes just from typing in the command into the top. Same with lines, circles, and spheres, and so on. Now you can find these commands in the toolbar and the many tabs above in these little icons, or you can type them into the command line. Whether you use the icons or you type them in, it does the same thing. Now before we move on, you should turn on 2 different settings. The first is to enable OSNAP. So in this corner of the screen, you can see a list of different snapping options. Let's turn them on. And then what you'll notice is when you create objects, let's say this line here, the position that they're created may snap on to different parts of the project. So you can see this box that we made. We can create lines attached to the corners of this box or the middle point of this box, um, and so on. So this helps us be a bit more precise with where we're adding and attaching different elements in our project. The second setting, or the second thing to consider, is to look at the Help tab. So on the right, if you click this little icon, it will give you an overview of how the different commands are used. So if I try the box command again, you'll notice that it automatically gives us an overview of the box command. And it tells us how we can draw the box out. It also tells us different properties that we can adjust when making the box. So when I create a box with the box command, you'll notice that it gives us 4 different options up here. By default, creating a box starts from the corner, so it goes corner to corner, which is diagonal. But if we use the box command again, before clicking anywhere on the C-plane, we can actually choose different ways that the box is made. So if we click center, we can actually make that box from its center. And that's what the help menu was telling us right here. So having the help menu open is really good, and you can learn a lot of things this way. All right, so we can create 2D shapes with lines. We can also do polylines, which is multiple straight lines linked together. And we can also use curved lines. We also have basic 2D shapes, like the rectangle, circle, and then we have what are called solids in Rhino, which are our basic 3D shapes. So we have a box, sphere, we can even make pyramids. So there it is again, the different options. By default, the pyramid will have 5 sides, but let's say I wanted a more classic pyramid, I could click on where it says num sides, type in 4, and then when we create the pyramid, it's going to have 4 sides to its base. You'll notice that our 3D shapes are looking a bit empty, and that's because of the display mode that we're viewing everything from. So back to where it says perspective, if you click on this arrow next to it, navigate to this list right here, you can see a range of different display modes that changes the way we see things. So have a play around with that. I'm going to stick with shaded for this tutorial. And now you can see that the faces of the 3D shapes appear and not just the outlines. Okay, now to move objects around, we're going to turn on something called the gumball. So if you look at the bottom of the screen and find gumball, click that on, and then what you'll notice is that when you select different objects, they appear with colorful lines that you can use to move your objects, rotate them, and also change the scale of them in different directions. Let's say I wanted to, instead of scaling this box from both sides, just wanted to do it from one side. What I can do is hold down Control Shift and then click the individual element that I want to manipulate. So I'm going to click this face here, and then I can drag it independently of the rest of the object. Same with rotation um, and scale as well. I can also create 3D shapes or polysurfaces from 2D shapes or curves. So let's say I wanted to extrude this jagged spiky shape that I made earlier. What I can do is see this little blue circle here, is drag it up, and that will create a 3D shape from the 2D shape. We can also enter specific dimensions when we use the gumball. So rather than clicking and dragging up and down for this square, if I just click the arrow, I can type in a value and the square will move up in this direction by this certain value that I've entered. So let's say 90. What it's done is moved up by 90 millimeters. By default, Rhino uses millimeters as its unit of measurement, and you can see that right here. But if you want to change it, you can type in units. So we're going to use the units command, hit enter, and then where it says model units, that's where you can change it to any unit of measurement you see here. But I'm going to stick with millimeters for this tutorial. Now when you have a lot of different objects, and you want to connect them or move them in a specific way, you're going to need to use the move command. So type in move, select your object, and because we turned on snapping earlier, we can select specific points on our objects and move them to specific points on other objects. So I want to go from this corner to this corner, and we can be sure that they're touching exactly. As I said earlier, the C-plane gives us the center of the project. And let's say that I wanted to move our model to be aligned exactly with the center of the project. What we can do is double click perspective to go back to the different viewports, hit over to the top view, select the objects that you want to center. I'm going to center this object right here. Type in align for the align command. Click the concentric option, which means center in both directions. And then you can type in 0 because the origin point of our C-plane is 0. So that's going to be exactly in the middle now. You can also align things horizontally, center, vertically, vert center, left, right, top, and so on. And you'll see why having these different views is so useful now, because if I wanted to align the bottom of this bottom with the C-plane, I can do so. When you're designing something like a house or a park or a bridge, it's really important to know about the dimensions that you're working with. So one command to help us with this is distance. If I type in distance, I can measure the exact distance between 2 points on an object. So let's say I wanted to measure the height of this box. I would select the bottom corner, and then I would select the top corner directly above it. And you'll see that above the command line, it gives us the exact distance between these points, which is the height of the box. So the height of this box is 25.449 millimeters. But let's say that I needed this to be exactly 20 millimeters tall. What I can do is use the scale 1D command. So scale 1D, I'm going to do a similar thing. I'm going to select one point, and then I'm going to select another point, and then I can change the height of this box relative to the 2 points that I selected. So this way I can type in 30, what did I say? 20 millimeters. Hit enter, and now the height of this box is exactly 20 millimeters. So now you know how to create 2D shapes, create 3D shapes. You can move them and manipulate them. And you also learned how to extrude 2D shapes into 3D shapes. Have fun.